And we're live.
Coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast.
There it is. What is going on, everyone? Did that last week, too. I got to fix that. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, Coach Steve. We got another fun episode for you guys today. We're continuing our Dynasty Talk here, going with the AFC North this time around. It's going to be a lot of fun. And, of course, we have our crew with us today. So let's introduce those. Coach Jibbs, what is going on today, brother?
It's another magical Monday and crappy winter weather. That's about it. But I'm doing good.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Coach Sean, what's going on, brother?
Nothing much. It's Super Bowl week. I know Jibbs is excited. I'm excited. It's going to be fun. So I'm good.
Good. Glad to hear. Glad to hear. And, of course, our guest for today's show, Dave. What is going on, brother? How you been, man?
I'm good. I guess it's either Coach Dave or Coach Dorks. We can figure that one out. But
you can
I'm
be
doing
Coach
well,
Dave.
man.
I like
it's Dynasty. Dynasty. This is the most fun part of the year. So having a lot of fun and looking forward to talking shop today.
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to kind of talk about a bunch of different players and kind of what their dynasty outlook is currently, what we might want to hesitate for the future with the upcoming free agency and the NFL draft coming up. We'll get back on the news next week, guys. I didn't really have time to go through it. Obviously, like Tom Brady, AJ Green retired this past week and a half now. Finally, Tom Brady's done. The Senior Bowl just happened this past week here, but we will actually talk about that tomorrow night on a little special edition show. But a lot of things are going around here now. Rookies are being hyped up. But let's talk about some of the players that are actually still on dynasty teams, that you're actually on your dynasty team right now, that we can talk about today. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of today's show here with the AFC North. And we'll start with my handy-dandy slideshow that I love so much here. We'll start with the quarterback position here, guys. And we're going to go with two players here. Obviously, we have Joe Burrow, QB3 overall. We have Lamar Jackson, who's QB15 overall. Kenny Pickett, the rookie of last year, QB27. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, who is now the full-time starter now in Cleveland here. But let's talk about two players in particular, guys. And Lamar Jackson, who, he's on he's technically a free agent now. We don't know where he's going to end up at this point right now. So that could be kind of concerning to fantasy owners. And of course, Deshaun Watson, which we know he's on the Browns, but he was away from football for so long, and him coming back didn't look the best. So Dave, I'm going to let you start with this one since you are our guest. If you were building a startup team right now, or if you had the option to trade them straight up in terms of dynasty trade, would you rather have Lamar Jackson or Deshaun Watson, and why?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I had someone, ask. I was trying to send you over a question, a Deshaun Watson question here in a second, but I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson. I still like the player. Deshaun Watson, obviously it's a new situation. We have not seen, we haven't seen what he can do yet on the Browns, but what we've seen so far hasn't looked great. I don't want to judge those two games based on everything. I still have both of them in my top 10, so it's not like I'm absolutely out on Deshaun Watson. But I think good things are to come for Lamar Jackson. I know he wants to stay with the Ravens. But I think he's the type of player that'll play well elsewhere, especially for fantasy.
No, I like it. I definitely like that. Coach Jibbs, what do you got for us? How do you feel about these two guys, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson? Who would you prefer right now in Dynasty?
I want to say Lamar, but we've been getting to the end of the last couple of seasons, and this guy is missing good chunks of your fantasy season, the road to the playoffs. He wasn't available in your fantasy playoffs this year, and I know the rushing ability is great, and obviously I don't expect him to be running around like that when he's I'll say like near future, but like a 5-year span, like I can see that kind of devaluing in the long term. But like as like a this year kind of thing, I'm gonna stay with Lamar. I'd rather have him on my roster, but I wouldn't be surprised if Watson kind of steps up when given a full year reps. Like we seen this guy pass for 4,000 yards when it was a 16-game season, and like Lamar is barely even getting to that figure. Obviously, he puts 1,000 yards rushing, but sometimes you can't really like count on that. So Lamar right now for sure, but Watson, like he does have some catching up to do, and I'm sure he'll become that fantasy player that we all were admiring him years back.
Of course. I love it. And Coach John, my friend, well, how do you feel about these guys? Lamar, Watson, both mobile quarterbacks, different in terms of throwing mobility, but they're elite and they're still only like 26 and 27 years old. Which way are you leaning on both these guys?
Yeah, I mean, the guys kind of said it best. I think we will see better from Deshaun Watson, but I still just feel more comfortable with Lamar Jackson. I'm confident that that's, the ship will figure itself out. The only question I have is, and Dave talked about it a little bit. What if Lamar isn't in Baltimore? Like that does actually worry me. I get it. He's mobile. He'll be good for fantasy and other situations, but a team learning a new playbook, getting in the organization really understanding what Lamar's good at, what he's not good at, putting him in good positions to win. Like it took Baltimore about a year and a half to sort of figure out how to really unlock Lamar Jackson. It's not a surefire thing that he's going to go to some other team and they're just going to know exactly how to unleash him and how to get the best out of him. But if he's back in Baltimore, I'm supremely confident that he's a top 6 guy, no problem. And if he's not in Baltimore, situation really changes things and depends, but I probably might slide him down a little, but still probably ahead of Deshaun Watson.
Interesting. I think I'm pretty much on the same train with you guys. Lamar Jackson is probably the smart answer, but my concerns is the offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, is now gone in Baltimore. I don't know how that's going to really impact his overall performance in terms of his ability to, do what he's able to do. And I think it comes down to health. I mean, Lamar Jackson, like prior 2 years, 2019 and 20, he had like 63 passing touchdowns. He was, rushing 2,000 yards, combined over the 2 seasons. He was healthy playing. The last 2 years, 33 touchdowns, just over 1,000 yards, 1,500 yards. But he's missing a ton of games, especially in the fantasy playoffs. So at this point, I love Lamar, and he's probably the better player and better fantasy talent. But I think I'd rather get Deshaun Watson right now and maybe get something included in it. If someone still believes in Lamar in terms of that top 5 overall fantasy player, I probably would rather have Deshaun Watson because I like what I saw at the end of the season. Top 12 quarterback the final 5 games, 2 games over 20 fantasy points. We'll see how that kind of goes. Oh, Brian Flores, Vikings defensive coordinator job. Good for him. I'm proud of him.
That is good for him.
Good for him. I like Brian Flores. Never hated him. So, but Dave, you did send me that question there in the chat, and I'm going to pull that up right here real quick. Now, this is mostly about Deshaun Watson, guys. And then the question is, Deshaun Watson for Russell in the 108. So what side would you guys want, Deshaun Watson or I'm assuming Russell Wilson, obviously, and the 108 in this rookie draft here? Dave, I'll let you start since it was your question.
That's why I sent it to you, Steve.
Oh, okay.
All
right, Jibs and John, you guys go first.
No, I'm just kidding. It just came in before the show, and he had asked me once. He said, "Would you trade Russell Wilson for 112 straight up?" And I said, "If I needed Russell Wilson, I think you can get a little bit more, maybe not too much more, but maybe a 2nd-round pick added to that 112, or maybe a future late first round pick out of that 112." So then he asked that question. Deshaun Watson and the 108 for 112. I think that is, that if you're gonna get that, I'll take the you see it, Russ Wilson and 108 or Deshaun Watson. I'm gonna take the Russ Wilson and 108 side on that one. If it's a super flex league.
All right, so I think he has the 108, if I'm not mistaken, based on the question.
He wants to do Deshaun Watson for Russ Wilson and the 108.
Yeah. Gotcha. So you would rather hold on to Wilson and the 108 then? I have the 108 in his chat above. It looks like it. Unless I'm reading it wrong.
He said he wants to do Deshaun Watson for Russ Wilson and the 108.
Right. So would you do that for Watson, or would you rather hold on to Russ and the 108?
Russ and 108.
Run us to 108. All right, Jibs, what about you? Would you rather trade for Deshaun Watson or keep Russell Wilson in the 108 right now?
I'm gonna actually keep Russell Wilson in the 108. I don't know why. It kind of sounds disgusting, but my gut feeling, Sean Payton turns it around. Like, I don't think it could be that much worse. Like, he showed a little bit, some flashes at the end of the year, but like, I think it could be. They're on the ground. They're going to move up next year offensively with those weapons.
It would be interesting because I think Sean Payton, I think I saw a tweet, Sean Payton will not allow Russell Wilson to have his personal trainers or personal coaches anywhere near practices. So that'd be real interesting. There's some issues coming on the future, but
that's right.
Yeah. John, how about you, my friend? How do you feel about this? You rather trade for Watson or keep Russell Wilson in the 108?
I'm kind of with Jibs. I'm keeping, and Dave too. I'm keeping Wilson in the 108 because I assume it's going to get better next year. I don't think Russell Wilson just forgot how to play football in one off season. So I have a feeling he'll come back. He'll be fine. He might not be that top end, top 8 quarterback that we've had before, but in any sort of super flex league, he's still very, very valuable, good. And hopefully Sean Payton comes and rights the ship and he's better next year and he's back to a top 12 guy. But I just don't. The 108 is what to me pushes it over the edge, where I'm like, okay, now I'm getting also a top piece that could develop into, a legitimate starter for the next 3 years, 4 years. Like it's a big piece. So 108's enough for me to want to keep Russ. Keep Russ around.
You guys said
it'd be maybe a second round pick. I would do it, but it's just there's not like 108's.
108's valuable. It's a good. It's a legitimate. That's probably going to be a legitimate piece in your lineup for the next 3-4 seasons. So
I don't think the gap is that big. So
yeah. I think you guys all really said it the best, honestly. I mean, I don't think Russ can be worse than probably QB 15 this coming season. I think he's got enough talent, and the coaching of Sean Payton, at least the QB 15 performance seems at least doable. Hopefully, if we all want more than that, but at least QB 15 is good enough. And with that 108 pick, you have a lot of options, especially if you need running back this year. It's a great class for running backs. Maybe you want to grab the young quarterback like Anthony Richardson from Florida. If he lands in the right situations, he might be going around there at that point. So you could have that now kind of QB situation and also build for the future situation where, you don't know what Watson's going to do in Cleveland. Maybe he performs, but again, they like to run the ball there. Kevin Stefanski loves to run the ball. They have Nick Chubb for a reason. So he might not see those high-end passing touchdowns that we might want out of him. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, Russ and the 108 definitely makes more sense. All right, so let's go to a young player now, someone who we hope, we'll see, will be in the league for quite a long time in Kenny Pickett, the only quarterback taken in the first round of last year's rookie draft here, or not rookie draft, but the NFL draft. Is someone like Kenny Pickett you're buying into? I mean, he's got the weapons. I mean, the same coordinator, which I don't think a lot of people seem to like. The offensive line needs work, but he's got the weapons around him going into year 2 now, being the guy finally and not having to worry about Mitch Trubisky stepping in from him. Jibs, I'll let you start on this one. How do you feel about Kenny Pickett? Are you buying into Kenny Pickett this offseason?
Well, I'm not really like a super flex savant, and I don't know what his price will be going for. I'm assuming the first rounder since he's a quarterback, but like that, I wouldn't even pay that price because even though with improvements, I don't see him being anything but a mid-tier QB2 in certain circumstances. And like last year, he didn't even throw for 2 touchdown passes in the game. Like obviously there's offensive line concerns. You still have the 2-headed monster in the backfield. Sure, they could let him have some limitations off like him being the second-year quarterback and allow him to be on the more spanning the playbook and whatnot, but I'm still not going to buy into that in the super flex league. Like unless someone's just giving them away, or you could swap some like meaningful lesser assets on your team. Yeah, but no, I'm good.
All right, I respect it. Coach John, how do you feel about Kenny Pickett? Is he worth buying into this all season? And what price range would you really go if you wanted him?
I mean, anyone's worth buying in at the right price. I think Kenny Pickett is probably one of those guys you could get as a throw-in to another deal, like a bigger deal, and just kind of be like, oh, I want Kenny Pickett too. And most teams won't not make a trade because you're asking for Kenny Pickett. So that's kind of how I would approach it. Like I would go after someone else and be like, oh, throw in Kenny Pickett and we'll call it a deal, and you could probably get it done. So that's the level of investment I would give to get Kenny Pickett on my team. The same problems I have with Mac Jones, I have with Kenny Pickett. I just don't know if there's any level of upside. And it's like, yeah, he's good. He can run an offense. He'll finish around, quarterback 16 on a good year. But it's like, how much does that help your team? Like, the range of outcomes is he's probably closer to that quarterback 20, 23, 24. And it's like on a good year, he could be quarterback 16. It's like, okay, well, whatever. So that's kind of how I feel about Kenny Pickett. I don't know, unless he takes some crazy leap like Josh Allen did, I just don't see. And Kenny didn't really show the tools that he can make that leap. I think he's just very kind of limited in him as a fantasy quarterback. I think he's a fine starter. He'll be all right. Like, Steelers can win with him, but he's not changing your fantasy roster.
Well, I can accept that. All right. Dave, over to you, my friend. How do you feel about Kenny Pickett as a whole? What if they bring Jordan Agenson, the wide receiver from USC, over there? That's the only way he was productive back in the day. But in general, how do you feel about Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, Kenny Pickett to Jordan Addison was awesome in college. I mean, a mid QB2 is still a big piece of your team in Superflex. I'm not going to go out there and spend 2 first-round picks for Kenny Pickett. But, when I'm looking at the fantasy pros, what they suggest in a Superflex, he's worth 29 points, and that is the equivalent to an early second-round pick. I can swing that. If you need a quarterback, you're telling me I can get, I could take Will Levis at 107, 108, or I can get Kenny Pickett for the 201. Yeah, I would prefer Pickett in that situation. He does run a little bit. He's got a nice setup there with the weapons. I think the offense can get better. The offensive line still needs some work, and they added a little bit of resources to it last year. We'll see if they add to it this year. I'm not going out and targeting Kenny Pickett in trades or telling people to go out and get him. He's still QB 16 in the ECR, QB 17 in the ECR, so he's still, moderately priced. But when you're looking at some of these, trades where you're trying to trade back and get a pick, player plus, maybe Kenny Pickett's a guy you target. Kenny Pickett plus something for one of these older quarterbacks or things like that, because there is some uncertainty with him.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I saw this trade just now on my Dynasty Nerds Dynasty GM. Someone made a trade at 2025 first and Kenny Pickett for Deshaun Watson. Interesting trade for sure. But would you guys do that? Would you give up Kenny Pickett in the 2025 first for Deshaun Watson? Pretty easily, right?
Yeah, I don't really. 2025 is pretty far out. I'll be lucky if I'm still alive at that point.
Yeah, I would do that.
Would you trade down from a higher, let's say mid 2023 first to a low end 2023 first and Kenny Pickett? So you say you had the 106, but you could trade down to the 110 or 111 and get Kenny Pickett. Would you guys do that?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, I probably would.
I probably would too, honestly. Depending on how my team is built, if I needed a quarterback, I would consider that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Asset building.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Asset building.
Yeah, asset building, yeah. Just a couple of trades there. But, Kenny Pickett he didn't really impress me all that much. Just mentioning it, didn't have a game over one passing touchdown. He just had one game over 250 passing yards in the season. His yards per attempt were 32nd in the league. And QB2 from week 6 on. It just didn't look great, honestly. I'm not actively looking to get him, but if you could get him for cheap, there's potential there, but you definitely don't want to be sending out trade offers just for Kenny Pickett. I think John said it better to use it and get him kind of on the cheaper end to make a deal look better to an owner. So, all right, so let's head over to the running backs. The running backs can be very interesting because there's some older people here, some young guys who I think we're kind of torn on. Some people might be. Obviously, we have the Bengals with Mixon and Samaje Perine. Baltimore's got J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Kenyon Drake, and Justice Hill were there last year. The Steelers obviously have Najee Harris still and Jalen Warren, who kind of surprised a lot of people last year. And obviously the Browns have Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt's a free agent, Dearness Johnson's a free agent. My favorite player of all time, Jerome Ford, is still there, so I love that. But let's start with Joe Mixon or Najee Harris right now in Dynasty. And I say that because, I feel like people are kind of like 50-50 on a lot of both these players. Like, you either love Joe Mixon or you really don't like Joe Mixon. And I think the same is with Najee Harris. It's like people either like him or they just don't like him. They don't like him as a running back. They don't think he's explosive. And same thing with Joe Mixon, even though Joe Mixon's older, but he's attached to a better offense. And, there's contracts, things and all that could be cut and whatnot. He had the whole murder charge, not murder, but the gun charges recently.
Menacing
weird
assault.
that disappeared like that. Yeah, kind of weird. But maybe this is a little too easy, but maybe not. Would you guys rather have Joe Mixon or Najee Harris right now on your dynasty team? John, I'll start this one with you, my friend. Which direction are you leaning?
So, you talked about it. Contract is a big thing. So a lot matters with Joe Mixon and where he ends up and what happens. But if all things are equal next season, Joe Mixon's back with Cincinnati. Najee is back with Pittsburgh, obviously. I think I'd rather Joe Mixon just because I always try and find, good running backs on good offenses because they're going to have touchdown opportunity and have the potential for big games, which we saw. I mean, Joe Mixon scored like 54 points one week just because he happened to have 5 touchdowns, whatever it was. And so, I get it that it's not always pretty with Joe Mixon, but it's not like Najee is super, fun and pretty to watch either. So I think both guys are kind of in that same tier of like a low end one. I think it's just I would rather be tied to Cincinnati's offense and tied to the touchdown upside that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase kind of give you.
I can respect that. What about you, Dave? How do you feel about these two overall? I feel like they've been both very inefficient running backs, but obviously there's an age difference, but there's also a tier in terms of offense. I mean, we can argue all this about the contract, but how do you feel about these two guys here?
Yeah, and they're close. I mean, ECR has them Najee Harris 13, Joe Mixon 14. So that it is close, but because of the age, I am going to go with Najee Harris on that. Joe Mixon, obviously, the situation this weekend makes it tough. As far as I know that the charges were dropped, but it just brings to light some of the things. He's also got, like John said, a contract. He can be someone that we're talking about being cut or being moved, if not this year, next year, when they have to pay Joe Burrow and they have to pay Jamar Chase. Like, they're going to be in a cap crunch here soon, and Joe Mixon is going to be a 27-year-old running back. So give me Najee Harris. They're very close. And, Mixon's – he's not a better offense, but he still is not used on third downs. P. Ryan's out there. He's not getting type of volume. And his production has been inconsistent. So give me Harris.
I like it. Chips, you're the tiebreaker in this scenario here, man.
I'm
Who do you
always
feel right now in Dynasty, man. Like, and say you're a contending team right now. I mean, maybe
contending. I'm taking Joe Mixon all day.
You're taking Joe Mixon all day, and
all day for contending.
All right, then more of a you're in the middle. You don't know what you're doing. I mean, I guess at that point you're leading Harris, but
yeah. But the only thing, like, I agree with what both John and Dave said. Like, the guys are like pretty much interchangeable. Like, they made my head explode countless weeks during the fantasy season, but it all comes down to a simple fact, like, it's opportunity. I love opportunity. Joe Mixon had 38 red zone rush attempts. Najee had 34. Like, I've seen countless replays of them bludgeoning and getting stuffed like 3 times. But Mixon also has a little edge in receiving yards or receiving targets in the red zone, as 8 out of 12 targets. So I think Najee was 4 for 7. Better offenses, better chances to score. Like, even like, I know they both had 6 touchdowns this year, and basically Mixon's all came off of one game where he got 5. If he has better touchdown luck, he could be a double-digit touchdown scorer. It'll take a lot for Harris to do that, in my opinion, because I could see Jalen Warren taking on a bigger role, and P. Ryan's a free agent too, so you just don't know how things go. They still have Chris Evans and a myriad of other backs to fill in, but I think like Mixon's role is cemented for 2023, not beyond, just next year.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely expect that.
I would be curious too if Cincinnati kind of gives Joe Mixon the Josh Jacobs treatment, where they're like, "Look, we're just going to run you into the ground for your last year. Like, we don't care. Like, you're about to go hit the market, or we're going to trade you anyway. So we might as well, while we have, Burrow and Chase on these rookie contracts, we might as well try and insulate that and then just run you into the ground and send you packing somewhere else next year. So there's part of me that believes that could happen with Joe Mixon too. If the offseason sort of shakes out correctly, they don't re-sign P. Ryan, they don't really spend any capital on anybody, which I don't think they will. I think they're going to have to address wide receiver with T. Higgins on the move. So it could be next year that Joe Mixon gets, crazy volume, just gets tons of volume. And with that, in a good offense, I just think it could be hyper valuable.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can respect that. I mean, I think in general, I think I would still lean Najee Harris in my sense here, just because I think I don't think you're getting a ton with Najee Harris, but he was a former first round pick. They're going to use him over the next 2 seasons, 3 seasons. They're probably just going to continue to use him till his contract runs out, and then he probably won't be a Pittsburgh Steeler after that notion there. But maybe the offensive line can get better over the next few seasons here now. He was dealing with that foot injury early on in the season, and he was obviously much better in the second half of the season. He was RB5 in the second half. He had 7 touchdowns though, but the yards weren't there still. So maybe he's still trying to get that foot thing going. I've always mentioned, if anyone has a foot problem going into the season, you do not want them in fantasy because they're just never going to hear properly because they're always on their feet. There's a reason for that. So maybe with the rest of this offseason, he can kind of get back to something a little bit more explosive. Maybe he can lose some weight. I know that was an issue last offseason. So I'm still going to stick Najee Harris in any situation, in my opinion. So, all right, let's head over to the next one. J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, we were excited to have him back this year, and then he got hurt again. He had a couple explosive games, which, I don't know if they were explosive, but pretty decent games that I'm sure we all loved. But the injuries kept on piling up this coming season here once again for him. Do you guys believe there's any chance that J.K. Dobbins could have like a Saquon Barkley like bounce back where, he dealt with injury, he's out for a season, dealt with an injury plagued season, and then kind of came back finally healthy, ready to go. Again, he didn't get a new injury. It was the same injury. He was just kind of cleaning up this during the season with surgery. Dave, we're back to you, my friend. How do you feel about J.K. Dobbins? Is he someone that you can kind of buy into to have a big 23 season?
Yeah, he could only bend his knee to a certain point because of the scar tissue. So we had the scar tissue removed. He's never going to have a Saquon Barkley kind of a bounce back because he doesn't catch the ball.
That's true.
And so his ceiling is limited. His ceiling is his ceiling would be Nick Chubb. And so that's
not bad.
It's good. It's good. But you got to have a lot of touchdowns. And Nick Chubb did not have Lamar Jackson siphoning off touchdowns the way that that he would. So I like J.K. Dobbins, but if you're paying those kind of prices where you're expecting a top 5, top 12 finish, it's just not there for me. But I do think with the injury and with how things happen, usually people are better the second year after an ACL injury. So I do think he has a better year coming up. And, he could be someone that you could buy in on at the right price, especially with rookie fever and how excited people are about running backs. You could get him. I'll look at the trade chart here in a second to see what they have him at. You can get him at a decent value.
What about a guy like Dameon Pierce? I feel like his name has been mentioned with Dameon Pierce a lot this offseason and a lot of things I've listened to. Would you rather get rid of Dameon Pierce off your team and get Dobbins if you can get something plus, or would you rather hold on to Pierce?
I'll take Dobbins. I don't. They're close. The value chart here has Dobbins at 37 and Pierce at 31. So they are very close, but I just don't know what's going to happen in Houston. I don't see Pierce he doesn't have the draft capital Dobbins has.
Right.
And you saw he faded. The big thing about him all off season last year was this guy's never had a full workload. Why is that? Well, he finally gets a full workload and he broke down. He looked exhausted at the second half of the year. So I just don't think they're going to do that to him again. If they bring somebody else in, and I think if they bring somebody else in, they're most likely going to be a pass catcher and take very valuable targets. Dobbins, we've seen it before. He was very good before the injury. And with that late draft capital, who knows? They could bring in another running back.
Sure. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like it. Coach Gibbs, what about you, my friend? How do you feel about J.K. Dobbins? Can he have somewhat of a, standard league Saquon Barkley comeback?
Standard league. Yes, he can. Yes, he can. I'm on board with J.K. Dobbins. I bought into him last year, and I was definitely fool's gold on my part. So like, I'm definitely gonna double down on my investments in 2023. Like J.K. Dobbins is the best player. Like you guys said, Nick Chubb. This guy's gonna get you. And a good game is going to be like 12 to 15 rush attempts for like $120 or $110. If he scores a touchdown, that's good. If he doesn't, hey man, that's 10 points for your standard league, which is pretty good. But like in half PPR leagues, like up to half PPR leagues, I think he could be a viable asset. I think he loses some of his edge in PPR. I'm still going to double down on him. Like I don't know like the contract situations of all the running backs in the Ravens backfield, but I know they spent that first round or the high capital for J.K. Dobbins, and I think he could be a viable fantasy option, especially in dynasty leagues. He's still a young guy.
That's true. Yeah, Dave, I see your comment there. A late first in a 1 QB, early second in a super flex kind of league on Fantasy Pro. So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense in terms of what kind of value you're looking to kind of give up to get Dobbins, or even vice versa if you want to. So, John, over to you, my friend. How do you feel about Dobbins, man? Do you think that there's a chance for him to do very well next year, even with the change in offense?
Yes, I do. I think, 2 years removed from an injury is obviously big. It's the year after the injury. You're kind of combating with other things that pop up, hamstrings, scar tissue issues, other stuff like that. I think he's going to be totally in the clear from that. And what we've seen from J.K. Dobbins is when he's healthy, he's explosive. I mean, he ran at 6 yards a clip his rookie year. And then when he was healthy this year, he was running at 5.7 a clip. So he's big plays just waiting to happen. He's kind of one of those guys that he can make your week in 1 or 2 carries, and then the rest is kind of gravy. So I would love him. I wouldn't be afraid throwing, 110 or later kind of at the J.K. Dobbins manager and being like, hey, what do you think? And start there. And I think that's probably he probably gets it done. If you go with the 110 to the J.K. Dobbins manager after they had been dealing with injuries and a season of flux and all this, I think now is the time to sort of go approach him and add him to your team, because next year the price will go inevitably just go up. It just, he'll be worth. And if he does well, you trade him mid-season next season, you probably get a 105. So you know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of how I would play.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I think you guys all make a lot of great points there. I mean, I think I'm willing to buy him as long as you guys are, those who are trading for him understands that he's probably not going to be your RB1, but probably a pretty solid RB2 in fantasy. He was RB14 the second time he came back from week 14 to week 17. Again, just 2 targets in that frame. So that there's no upside in terms of the passing, like Dave said, but there's a role for him to have those RB1 touches on his team there, even with Lamar Jackson coming back. And hopefully, if he's back and healthy, I think that will even help J.K. Dobbins out even more. And in 2020, he was 3rd in breakaway runs, 9th in yards per touch, 2nd in juke rate, 4th in yards per carry. So he can run the ball. And just kind of like Nick Chubb, he's not a guy who's explosive in all phases of the offense, but the man can run, and J.K. Dobbins can run. And as long as he's healthy, it's worth buying into if you can get him at the right price. That's for sure. All right. And real quick, last thing for the RBs here. Is there any RB that's not one of the starters that you guys will want to buy in this offseason here? Any one of these guys? Some of these guys could be on new teams that could be worth having a depth piece. Anybody in particular?
Jalen Warren probably is someone that he's not a starter, but I'd be willing to invest something in just to have him on my bench, on my roster, in case Najee gets hurt, in case the role changes, stuff like that. He's someone I'm definitely interested in, and might cost a little bit because people are hopeful. But I think you could probably, again, like Kenny Pickett, get him as a throw in to a bigger deal. And I would be interested in that.
Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt is most likely out of town.
Yeah.
And so he's someone that you might be able to get right now as someone I don't want to target him in trade because people do know free agency is lurking and things like that. But he's someone that you could get now as part of a deal who could see a jump in his market during free agency. Of course, you could see it go down, but wouldn't Kareem Hunt going back to the Chiefs be fun? But there's plenty of teams that need running backs. I know this is a very deep running back class, but he offers a 3-down skill set. He's bigger than some of the running backs that are in this class, and we've seen him do it. Even as a secondary piece, he's been fantasy relevant the last few years.
Chips.
I like those two. Those are definitely my first two options. Other than that, maybe you could take a shot on like the Cleveland presumed backup to Nick Chubb. I mean, there's been a role. We don't know how effective the role it is to a week-to-week basis because like it could score a touchdown for 2 weeks and then give you crap like the rest of the season. So I think that would be like low-hanging fruit that you could probably just swing like one of those 3rd, 4th round picks that you dread using and get a pick like a guy like that. But that's just speculation. Definitely should like look into Warren, Kareem Hunt, and I guess maybe keep an eye on P. Ryan. He's been productive backup everywhere he's been, or I guess for Cincinnati Bengals. So like, but yeah, I'm thinking about the other P. Ryan. But yeah, those 4. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you guys all also make really great points about everyone basically here. I mean, maybe Gus Edwards, Dearness Johnson, if he lands in the right spot, who knows? But a lot of the running backs here have potential to do maybe something next year. We'll see. Free agency will tell us a lot. So, all right, let's over to those wide receivers now. Obviously, we have a lot of wide receivers here to talk about. So, obviously, the Bengals have Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. Ravens had, an injured Bateman, Devin Duvernay. Demarcus Robinson was the best receiver there. The Steelers have Deontay Johnson and George Pickens, some other guys like Calvin Austin, a young guy. Steve Sims didn't actually do terrible as a slot guy there. Cleveland obviously has Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and then some young guys like Dave Bell, Anthony Schwartz, Michael Woods. So there's some decent guys here to talk about. Let's talk about one injury guy who, I think a lot of people had hope for going into 23, 22, but obviously didn't live up to that standard. And it's Rashard Bateman. And he dealt with, he had a couple explosive plays that made his fantasy week look better. But he got injured and unfortunately missed the rest of the season after week 6, I think it was. How do you guys feel about Rashard Bateman's value moving forward? Do you guys, is it someone you want to buy into that, a lot of people loved Rashard Bateman. Jibbs, I'll let you start with this one, my friend. How do you feel about Rashard Bateman? Do you want him on your dynasty team? Do you want to buy low on him going into next year?
I'm a little skeptical now. Like, obviously, I think you could get him at a good price point due to the injury and what's going on with the Ravens. But like the Ravens, we talked about with Lamar Jackson earlier, I'm just like not convinced. Like, I know they got rid of the offensive coordinator, but like, is like the Ravens like potential cap because they just want to be a run first team? Like, are they really getting like Lamar Jackson like better as a passer, or they like put him in like good situations, which is good for the team, but like I don't think like there's going to be like this huge enormous ceiling that we were all expecting out of him when he had this MVP season. But with that being said, like if they continue to go about their same old ways, I can see Bateman as being like that 6-7 target guy, and we're just hoping that he catches all his balls, and we know how they like to use him deep and stuff like that. So like it could be a high variance game with them, and I don't expect him to be a consistent option for your dynasty team on a week-to-week basis. But like everything being said, like he's still a young guy. Like, he has a lot of miles left on his NFL body. So if you could get him for, I don't think like people are going to be expecting. Maybe the people are expecting to get like a high first-round pick for him that they invested in him 2 years ago. I don't think so. But if you get him for a high second-round pick, and you really like him, go ahead. I don't know, but Dave probably got the trade chart up. Let me get that. What you got on there?
You're right on it, man. So he's a 29. That puts him for a one quarterback. That puts him right there in between an early second and a top 12 pick. So, in that fringe, late 1, early 2 range. And then for a super flex, more of a early to mid 2. So I generally play super flex. So that's where that's at.
I respect it. Dave, I'll let you go. How do you feel about him as a player? Are you buying into him based on that values, or would you prefer to avoid him? I mean, the free agency class isn't that great for wide receivers. The rookie class isn't great for wide receivers. So, I mean, him coming back being the top guy outside of Mark Andrews seems likely. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, if I can get him for an early 2, or if I'm like, moving up in the draft or moving back in the draft. I was on a show talking about like players that you could, if you're trying to move down, like let's say I want to move down from a receiver and get a receiver plus, like who are some guys you could target? And Rashad Bateman's name came up quite a bit on, if I wanted to move down from Brandon Ayuk and get a player plus, like Rashad Bateman plus something for Brandon Ayuk, something like that. This is going to be an interesting offense. We don't know for sure what they're going to do with the quarterback situation. It does look like they're probably going to franchise tag Jackson. If they franchise tag him, does he force his way out with a trade or something? Do they, is this really going to be a traditional offense? Are they really going to try that? And what does that even look like? We haven't really seen what Lamar Jackson does in a traditional offense. Is there a lot, So I like Bateman, but I'm not investing to the point where I expect him to be my wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 1 at any point. So I wouldn't pay anything more than a high second. It's just there is good players in this class, and I wouldn't want to, go off of them for him.
Sure. All right. I like it. I probably be with that person and say, "Oh, you want Rashad Bateman? Please take them off my team. Thank you so much." I have no leagues with Rashad Bateman at all. I love it. John, how about you, my friend? How do you feel about Rashad Bateman? How do you think that he will? You think he can step up next year, or think it's just not going to be for him?
So I think Dave kind of hit the nail on the head right at the end there when he said, it's all about roster construction. I'm not looking at Rashad Bateman as a wide receiver 1 or 2 anymore. To me, he's a super volatile wide receiver 3. Like he could have a big week. He could have a 6-point week. But to me, that's fine. Like as long as you, in your mind, build your roster out correctly and you say, okay, Rashad Bateman's my 3. If he has a big week, great. If he doesn't, it doesn't kill me. I think the problem was this offseason, everyone was wanting Rashad Bateman to bounce into that wide receiver 1 category. I don't know if the offense will allow it. I don't know if he is that kind of player. I just don't know. He'll never be that 135 target player. It's just not in Baltimore's MO. I don't know if it's in his MO to be that, but he could easily be a great wide receiver 3 on your team. And if you're telling me I only have to invest a mid-second, a high second in that, then I'll take the chance. I'll take the chance if Lamar's back and, again, I can build my roster out so that he's my 3 or even my flex, then great. It's awesome.
All right. Now,
a lot of mock drafts have the Ravens going after a receiver.
As they 100% will. If they don't draft, I think they'll draft multiple. Because look they've Devin Duvernay and Marcus Robinson behind him. They're going to draft multiple and sign a guy. They could go sign T. Higgins and draft a guy for all I know. And then it changes everything. But I'm assuming the Ravens are going to address it, which is also, I think, kind of could help Bateman because then he doesn't have to be the one alpha on the Ravens. He can be, more of that, like, let's scheme up certain plays for him and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's that good, honestly. I was not a fan of him. John, I don't know if you were on the show. Jibs, you were there for sure. We were talking wide receivers like 2 years ago, and I think Robbie was on the show, and he ripped me for beating Rashad Bateman so much.
Yeah.
I had him outside, I think, the top 10, and Robbie was ripping me left and right on that day. I was like, hey, man, it's just how I feel about him. I just don't like him. But it will be interesting to see, he got off to a fast start, 169 yards and 2 touchdowns the first 2 weeks of the season. He had 6 drops. I don't know if they're going to draft someone. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Maybe they trade for someone big, like obviously like Higgins, Evans, someone else that who's needs a wide receiver they might trade from, but we also don't know who the quarterback is. So for me, it's just like, I just don't trust him. Mark Andrews is the one. And I feel like they're going to bring someone else in to be the wide receiver 1 of this team. Like, I think at best you're looking at like an MVS kind of season for Rashad Bateman. That's the best I see him at this point in his career, personally. Just not for me, guys. So, That's all I have to say about him. So, all right, let's talk about some more, high profile guys
MVS.
here.
That's blasphemous, man. I mean, there's not liking the guy, and there's disrespect.
MVS.
I mean, he's a deep threat. I mean, he'll put up some decent plays here and there, but I just don't see him being ever a guy who's going to be a consistent.
I have to go acquire Bateman in our league, so I can.
I don't have him, so
I can
you
beat
can do
you
it
with Bateman.
I hope you do. You're the champion in our NFL coaches league, so we'll see what you can do. Let's see. Let's talk more about the top ends. Obviously, Jamar Chase is a guy we all want, top tier wide receiver, top 3 option almost, depending on top 5, whatever you decide. But what about a guy like T. Higgins, guys? How do you guys feel about T. Higgins? He might be on the Bengals this year, but he's in the last year of his contract. There's a good chance that they don't resign him because they can't afford to, and he ends up on the Giants or in Chicago or in Baltimore. How do you guys feel about T. Higgins? Are you gonna take that chance and give up like a first-round pick and plus to an owner who's scared right now and wants T. Higgins off their team because of the unknown of his location, maybe this year or the following years to come? John, you're first on this one.
Yeah, I don't know. I love T. Higgins. I mean, I love the player. I love everything about him. I guarantee Cincinnati's not going to pay him. I can guarantee it because they literally just can't afford him. He's going to go somewhere, get paid top dollar, and be a wide receiver 1. He's going to do it. It'd be that team's wide receiver 1 is kind of what I meant. And I think he has the ability to be an alpha. I think he has the ability to, you can build an offense around. He could be a 135 target guy and handle it. I think he's really good. So the next question is, where does he end up? Does he end up in the Giants, and the Giants have some rookie quarterback because they don't bring back Daniel Jones, and, it's a disaster. And then I don't want anything to do with him. But say Kansas City makes a pass at him. Say, someone crazy, the Packers, Aaron Rodgers comes back and T. Higgins signs with the Packers, like crazy something could happen where I could see a team being like, look, T. Higgins puts us over the top. T. Higgins makes us a contender. So let's do it. And if that situation happens, then you're sitting pretty. Then you're really good. But the alternative is he ends up on a team that's just got a ton of cap space. He's chasing a bag, which I wouldn't blame him that way either. But then he's just going to be in a New York Giants situation where, yeah, he's making a ton of money, but maybe they don't bring Daniel Jones back, and you're kind of, they don't sign Saquon, and now all of a sudden you're the number 1 on a team that's bottom 5 in offense. So it's like, okay, I'll take it, but it's not as good as I think it can be.
True. I respect it. I mean, I like it. I love T. Higgins, so I love that you guys are hyping him up. I love it. Dave, what about you? How do you feel about T. Higgins and his future? Are you just going to buy into it no matter what happens and take advantage of that situation right now?
Yeah, I do think you got to take a little bit of a hit next year. I mean, he's a guy you have to pay a ton to acquire, and he just doesn't feel like a wide receiver 1, but you're going to have to pay for wide receiver 1 right now. And, I don't know how comfortable everybody is with him being their actual wide receiver 1 on their team next season. To acquire him based on this trade chart, it's a lot. He is valued at, I think he's the 13th most valuable at 52 points, which would cost you a mid first-round pick in Superflex and a top 4 pick in 1 quarterback.
Yeah.
Damn, I wish I could get a
top
Would
4 pick for
T. Higgins.
Would you give up 2 first-round picks over the next 2 seasons to acquire T. Higgins and get a second-round pick also with that?
I would.
If they're late.
I don't know. Just looking on this trades I hear. There's a lot of weird ones. Some of them are pretty
if it was, if I'm giving up, my pick next year and I'm rebuilding, then of course I would not do that. But if I'm a contender and I'm giving away, 110 plus my future late first, yeah, I would do that. Because like John said, I do firmly believe he's going to be a starter somewhere next year. And, we don't know where that's going to be. And that's the hard part. But if someone's paying him that much money, they're most likely going to make him a feature part of the offense, and he's going to be, getting 130, 140 targets somewhere in 2 years.
True. I like it. Jibs, what about you, my friend?
Absolutely love T. Higgins. I'll be one of those blind believer guys and pay a boatload of picks just to get him, just to have him. But I think he's every bit of like a number one wide receiver in the NFL terms. Like obviously in fantasy, he's been providing us low end wide receiver 1 numbers when Chase was there, when Chase wasn't there, and I could see the big playability. He's a big guy. He can make those 80-20 balls, as he calls it, and I think that could go anywhere. It's just hopefully it goes to a good situation, and I'm just praying it's not the Giants.
I like it. I hope not.
I like the Giants.
I don't know where I want him, but I don't want. I need anywhere without. Honestly, Jamar Chase is my preferred opinion, honestly, because he was wide receiver 12 during that stretch without Jamar Chase on the field. With Jamar Chase, the first 7 games, wide receiver 22. The last 5 games of the season, wide receiver 35 with Chase on the field. Clearly, like without Jamar Chase, T. Higgins shows up as a wide receiver 1. So getting him on your team is an important thing to do right now in fantasy. So
yeah, like I said, it's just gonna. He's not a wide receiver 1 on your roster right now.
But
he had wide receiver 1 performance only 4 times last year, and that's
without Chase.
Yeah,
at least 3 of them were probably without Chase.
Yeah, and 3 times he's a wide receiver 3 or worse.
Yeah, so he'll be a wide receiver 1 in no time. You just have to buy it now. So let's talk about this quickly. Just go through these rest of these 3 guys here. Would you guys pay up a first for Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, or Amari Cooper to acquire in your team right now?
probably not Deontay, but the other 2 I would.
Yeah.
All right, so Pickens and Amari Cooper would be first round picks you would take to get them, but not Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
Nah, you got to slowly his name. He didn't score a touchdown last year. You put that price down.
Sure. Are you buying Deontay Johnson based off 0 touchdowns and 140 targets potentially coming his way again?
I tried, and he got sold before I could pull the trigger. So
what do you sell for?
I'll double back in. We'll double.
Dave, John, how do you guys feel?
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess I would. I'd give up a mid-second form, I guess. I don't know. I wouldn't feel super comfortable with it, but I would do it. I just don't know. Again, Deontay Johnson to me is never going to be a game-wrecking guy for fantasy that I'd rather pay up for T. Higgins, you know what I'm saying, than fill my roster out with a bunch of Deontay Johnsons. That's just kind of how I feel sometimes. It's good to balance your roster out. You need some, high target, low ADOT guys that'll just fill up points. But it's I also kind of want guys that, George Pickens, big play, could score a touchdown on a 40-yard bomb. It's just not who Deontay Johnson is.
Dave, what about you?
Yeah, he's the price to acquire based on the chart, based on other things. It's all over the place. I was on a show the other day, and they said Rachaad White and Deontay Johnson for 111, Hodgins and Knox, no tight end premium. And so it's basically 111 and some pieces. I don't really think those guys have much value, Hodgins and Knox. And everyone on the show is no.
Yeah.
And I was for 111, I'm getting both Rachaad White and Deontay Johnson. I'm okay with that, but I'm not paying 111 straight up for Deontay Johnson by himself. And the trade chart says he's kind of like the other guy. He's borderline top 12 pick, top 15 pick. And I'm not by himself. I'm not paying that.
Yeah. So in a vacuum, you're basically asking yourself, would you rather have Rashad Bateman or Deontay Johnson? Because
Deontay Johnson.
It's costing you about the same.
Listen, Deontay Johnson, 15 touchdowns between 2020 and 2021, and at least 800 yards the last 3 seasons. He's produced. He's not fantastic because he's inconsistent in terms of his ability to catch the ball, actually, but he is seeing the targets in this offense. I think it might come down to 120, allowing Pickens to see more work, but 120 targets is still someone I'm buying into. If I can get Deontay Johnson and something from my late first round pick, I'm willing to do that, especially if I need wide receiver, because this is not a great class for wide receiver. I'm not liking too many guys so far. So if I can get Deontay Johnson plus for like the 11th or 12th pick of the draft, I'm willing to do that if I can get him in something.
My biggest fear is just Deontay Johnson is Jacoby Myers. That's just my biggest fear, is that like, yeah, you know.
Even Jacoby Myers hasn't done as much as Deontay Johnson has yet. He's getting there. I hope he gets a good contract, Myers.
I hope so too.
Probably not with New England, but I'm sure somewhere. maybe Baltimore.
we saw the regression. Like, he was so hyper efficient with what he had before. We saw the volume come down, but he's probably, like, with the amount of targets and catches he had last, like, he's a positive regression candidate for getting some touchdowns next year. I mean, he just had the last game of the year, he's like reaching for the end zone, like Space Jam, but didn't finish the same.
I feel like he did have a few where he was like dragged down at the one where I'm like, oh, poor guy, like get him. Yeah,
but we've at least seen him score before. You know, that was the issue with Jacoby Myers. He went like 3 seasons without scoring.
he went all of college in 3 years in the without scoring.
Yeah, that was tough.
Everybody celebrated when he scored. Like, even like the other team was like, "Thank God."
I think they threw a parade in Boston the next day.
Oh, that's great.
That's great for sure. Did you find that trade?
It actually was for pickings, and it was the 103 in this year's draft, the first round pick, and next year's draft for Etienne and Pickens that he gave up, and he got Mooney. So he got 2 first-round picks, Mooney. He traded away Etienne and Pickens.
I don't know if I like that much, but
it's one QB. It's a friendly league, so it's not like you got sharks out there. So I let them do whatever they want to do.
I respect it. All right. All right. It's not too bad. All right, let's get over to the final part of the night, guys. The tight ends here. All right, tight ends aren't as great as I mean, most of them are pretty good, honestly. You can't complain. Obviously, Hayden Hurst, he's a free agent for the Bengals. We'll see what they do. Baltimore has obviously Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Josh Oliver actually did pretty decent at times. Steelers have Pat Freiermuth. Cleveland has David Njoku and Harrison Bryant. First question, I think this is a pretty obvious one because Mark Andrews. Is it time to sell on Mark Andrews? I know it's hard to maybe want to say that because his end of season was so bad, but do you sell on that value that we don't know what quarterback's going to go happen right now? Like, God forbid it's not Lamar and it's somebody else. It's some journeyman, whatever it may be. You guys, maybe it's Tyler Huntley, Pro Bowl Tyler Huntley again next year. You know, are you looking to sell off Mark Andrews and get that value of his because as a tight end one, a high end tight end one, or are you just going to hold on to him? I think we're back at the top here, Dave. It's all you.
Yeah. Based on the chart, I would, because you could get like it's Kyle Pitts at 55, Travis Kelce 53, Andrews 51, and then TJ Hawkinson's 38. Ooh. And for me, Hawkinson is much closer to Andrews than that. I like Hawkinson a lot. Mm-hmm. And so if you're telling me I can get that much of a difference, then I would definitely would, whether it was a 3-round discount or I'm getting additional picks. The problem with Andrews in a startup, you know, this is a guy that's not on your team. You're having to pay 3rd-round draft capital for him. If he's already on your team, I mean, because of the position, he still has some good value in trade. But I would only trade him if I could get a good tight end with it, unless I'm completely rebuilding. Because you like these other guys, like I wouldn't take Njoku plus something. Like I don't want to start Njoku on a daily basis. I don't want to start Freiermuth on a daily basis, and I definitely don't want to start Hayden Hurst. So like I'm gonna keep Andrews unless I could get TJ Hawkinson. Maybe I would consider Dallas Goedert as long as there was a good plus with that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jibs, what about you? How do you feel about Mark Andrews' future?
I'm still with them. Like I would sell him given the uncertainty, but like Dave said, I think it's the buck stops at Hawkinson. Goddard, Kittle, if you want to get cute, but I don't really think Kittle's that big of an investment. And obviously can't get Kelce for Andrews. So if it's not one of those players I just mentioned,
you might.
Okay, you might
get Kelce for Andrews because people might want to get off of Kelce right now.
Okay, if I can get Kelce for Andrews, I'm sending him and a box of candies too. But anything lower than that, you're just getting yourself in trouble. We go in each year for redraft season trying to pick out the tight end gem, and then we're sitting here for 16 weeks telling you a different sleeper every week, except the one that hit last week. So it's a mystery. So you might as well kind of keep what you have. But if you could get someone a little bit younger and a good situation offensively, go for it, man, because the time could be right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he'll do that bad with Huntley, but I don't think it's going to be like Action Jackson numbers either.
All right, John. How about you? How do you feel about Mark Andrews?
I like the player. I like, obviously him in Baltimore has been magical. I wouldn't trade him right now because we talk about dynasty trades being like timing more than anything, and like he ended the season poorly. They know Lamar Jackson's situation is up in the air, so it's like now's not the time to be shopping Mark Andrews. Like if he's on your team, like just deal with it. The offseason is going to be kind of crazy. And you hope he comes back strong next year. But, in the situation, say you are kind of shopping the trade, I would almost rather, go the other way with it, where it's Mark Andrews plus a little something, give me Kelsey or Pitts. Like, give me the big guys. Like at this point, like, you can almost do like, hey, Mark Andrews in a second, for Kelsey, and like Kelsey manager might run at that opportunity. If you Mark Andrews in a late second for, whatever, or Mark Andrews and Mark Andrews and Darnell Mooney for whatever, and you're just trying to up. That's kind of the way I would go with it. If it was me, if I'm trading Mark Andrews, I would almost package him up and try and upgrade some other positions, some other pieces and things like that. But ultimately, I think you kind of got to wait until Lamar Jackson news, until, kind of the taste of this 2022 season is out of everyone's mouth. Like all of that. I think you just got to kind of wait a little bit. I think Mark Andrews hype will heat back up in the offseason. Maybe Ravens sign Lamar to some 5-year deal, and then everyone's going to be in on Andrews. So that's kind of why I wouldn't even bother shopping him right now, because you're not going to get what he's really worth.
I like it. We have a question in the chat. Not a question, but more of just a verification from Mondo here. He said he bought Pat Freiermuth, who will be the next guy we talk about, for the 2.6, and then Kyle Trask for the 3.4. It is super flex. Quickly, how do you guys feel about this?
Good. Taking your chances on two, names. I don't. 304 to me is totally fine. Like whatever, you throw a dart. If you made the pick, it was going to be a dart throw anyway. So I guess take the dart throw on Kyle Trask, and then the 206 is fair for Pat Freiermuth. I mean, I think he's a low end
tight end premium or anything. So
yeah, I mean, he's a low tight end one. So it's fine. 206. I don't hate it. I don't hate either trade. How do
the rest of you guys feel?
I'm fine with it. I think 206 is what's going to cost. I mean, that you're probably paying a little bit more for Michael Mayer. That's probably the Dalton Kincaid maybe range. There are some decent players you can get there, but we all know how it works. You got 30 players you like, and then the draft landing spots happen and it shrinks.
Yeah.
And so it may not be, that many. So, and Trask, I mean, it's a dart throw. We'll see, but he is last man standing right now. Blaine Gabbert's a free agent. Unless they re-sign Gabbert and start him, or maybe they get Carr. Tampa Bay is the number 1 odds to get Carr right now.
Really? Interesting.
Wow.
Updated yesterday.
Interesting.
Heard Braun Turdy is going to Tampa Bay, coming out of retirement. Jibs, real quick, how do you feel?
I like it, low investment. I think you probably could replenish your second round pick if you really need to. And the upside could pay off greatly. And I don't mind Pat Freiermuth. Like you said, I think the slide you have at is tight end 6. So I think he could kind of replicate his numbers, or at least be somewhat near it next year for a week-to-week basis. So
I like it. Check your mic a little bit too, my friend. Last but not least, let's get to this last question. Would you rather have David Njoku or Pat Freiermuth right now in Dynasty? Jibs, you're up. Last question of the night.
I'm taking Pat Freiermuth.
All right, I like it. John, what about you?
Same. Pat Freiermuth. I don't know. I guess call me a sucker for consistency at tight end. You know, I just
it.
you know I like some points better than you know. I just don't whatever. These are interchangeable low tight end ones in my opinion.
Yeah.
Both of them.
John's answer is C, none.
Yeah, I mean I'm not psyched that either one of them is like my starting tight end. They're fine.
Dave, what about you? Last of the night, Dave.
Yes, Pat. I'll take Freiermuth. Usually by year 3 is kind of the breakout for tight ends. We're going on year 3 for him. I'm not saying calling for the breakout, but it could happen. Now they get, Claypool's out of town. We'll see what they do in the draft, but they really could implement an offense that features him more with Pickens and Deontay Johnson versus 3 receiver sets and help that blocking scheme.
I like it. I mean, I'm a big fan of Pat Freiermuth. I think there's potential for him to really step up into that next tier at some point. I know it's Kenny Pickett and whatnot, but I mean, he's consistent. He might not put up the Travis Kelce-like season, but putting up maybe 700-800 yards most years, I think will be pretty solid. And if you get a tight end like that, not have to worry about him for a while, I'm excited. So he had a big touchdown regression this year compared to last year, but I think it will even out next year. I mean, he looked good. Just be careful of the injury, though. He did bang himself up at the end of the season there, so just watch out for that. But I'm sure he'll be good to go for week 1. So, but that is going to end our show tonight, guys. That was a great episode, guys. You guys did all a fantastic job talking about the AFC North, breaking it all down for Dynasty. Dave, you were a great guest, as always, my friend. And we will let you talk. Maybe you got some things to say what you got going on in the industry right now.
Yeah, so on rookies, so Superflex rookie mock draft. Check it out. We have SGPN Fantasy Football. I did some shorts, so 15 seconds per pick, and you can see how the draft's going. We got 4 rounds. The link is in the bottom if you want to skip ahead and read the article for all 4 rounds. But I'm dropping every pick. I got first round dropped, SGPN Fantasy Football.
Love it. All right. Coach John, what about you, my friend? What's going on, brother? What you got to say?
I got nothing really going on. I'm starting to gather all my, the Senior Bowl happened, so I'm starting to kind of decipher through a lot of that information and film on that, and then start to parse out incoming rookies and that whole fun project where you just get to watch a crap load of film and kind of make your uneducated assessments and guesses on these guys, and then the draft happens and it changes everything you think about these players. So I'm excited. It's the off season's a ton of fun, and I will only say this once: go Birds.
Let's go. And Jibs,
let's double down, baby. Go Birds.
Go Birds. I love it. All right, guys, this was a fantastic show. As always, please go follow our YouTube channel at The Coach's Fantasy. Subscribe. The more subscribers we got, the more we'll want to keep doing this for you guys. So keep us going here. Obviously, follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. You can always join our Discord channel here. I believe it is on our fantasy page, our Twitter page, under the Fantasy Coaches. It's like the first link there. So join it, come join some fun discussions, come talk about some trades if you might have and whatnot. Some other things. Obviously, I have my Dynasty Nerds affiliate here, promo code coaches to sign up for the Dynasty Nerds Dynasty GM thing tool. It's really fun. It's cool. It's really awesome. I mean, I have it obviously for free, but it is really cool to have. It really helps break down your team and kind of see a lot of different things, and then obviously building an app really soon. So use that promo code coaches. We will have another special show tomorrow. John and Jibs, you guys are welcome to join if you'd like to as well. Dave, you can join too if you want. We're just doing a little Senior Bowl recap with one of my friends, Dan. He's going to be going over some riders and followers of the Senior Bowl because he was at the Senior Bowl. Dave, were you at the Senior Bowl? I don't know if I saw you there or not. I wasn't there, but I don't know if you went.
No. I usually go to the Combine, but not the Senior Bowl.
True. So Dave was at the Dan. I got the names mixed up. Dan was at the Senior Bowl, so he's going to give us our top 5 risers and followers. So we'll be doing that tomorrow afternoon at 7 p.m. So until then, guys, we'll be back next Monday to talk about the AFC South. And we'll see you guys then, guys. So take care and have a good one.